Thank you for choosing to watch the Watchman News Headlines video. Our full episodes can now be seen over at Patreon with much more added content for just $2 a month. Link is in the description. If you cannot afford $2 a month, please consider using our Amazon affiliate link, purchasing from our Teespring store, or making a PayPal donation. All links are below. In order for us to grow, we have to make changes to enable it. Our time is valuable, and we have been one of the very few news sources actually dedicated to bringing you honest, hard-hitting, actionable news and information. Plus, for your $2 a month, you do not have to hear me blabber about these links. It's a win for us all.
Bullshit.
Thank you. Good evening, Watchmen and Watchwomen of YouTube. So, before I get started in the headlines here, I do want to say that I am making the entire episode, this entire episode, available publicly. Now, here's how I'm going to do that. Not all of you are going to be interested on the topic that I spoke about this evening. So, just continue watching this video, and you're just going to get the headlines. However, if you would like to have or see the entire episode, from the monologue all the way through to the end of the headlines, then what you need to do is in the description of the video will be the link to this Patreon post. Now, what I will do is on Patreon, I will set tonight's episode to public. So that means you won't have to pay $2 a month or anything like that. To be able to access tonight's full episode. So I'm doing that because I think it's an important topic. And while I've got your ear, I'm also going to make another Patreon episode public. I will also link it in the description, and that goes back. I believe it was the 24th. I did an episode. On ways, essentially ways that you could put a minimal investment into prepping and have a maximum return. And I can't remember the exact name of it. But anyway, I will link that also in the description of the videos here on YouTube. And then that way you can access them easily. Look, I'm not trying to shut you guys out on YouTube, okay? I've got a lot of plans. And you're going to start seeing me follow through on these plans very, very quickly. And I think you're going to see where I'm trying to go, what direction I'm trying to go. And, you know, your patronage over there on Patreon will help that journey. It truly will. Because, you know, like right now, aside from weather and stuff like that, but I'm waiting on being able to get a couple of little things like denatured alcohol. And I need to get some matte clear coat. And I can get started at least on the housing for this Coleman stove, okay? But I've got the heat paint here. I've got the wire wheels in. I've got, I'm right there. My biggest issue right now is the weather and stuff. That's the biggest hang up, but I got to get a couple of things yet. Those are things that I'm going to be doing, okay? I'm getting ready to shoot a video of putting up a shed as soon as it gets here. And, these are going to be things that are over on Patreon. And I'm not, when I do this, you're probably thinking, well, what's the big deal? You're putting up a shed, big deal. I'm doing it by myself. I'm not going to have any help doing it. And I want to show you guys how you can do this stuff, how you can problem solve and come up with solutions, part of the things we talked about tonight over on Patreon, to be able to achieve these things. So I'm not going to keep talking about it because I don't want this to turn into an infomercial or anything. But long story short, tonight's episode, full episode, will be available. You just have to click on the Patreon link in the description of the video, and that will take you over to Patreon. I don't even think you have to have an account. I'm pretty sure you won't even have to have an account. But anyway, you'll see the post, and just click on it, and you'll be able to see the full episode. So also make sure to catch that other episode that I'm going to have linked underneath of tonight's episode. So because that's a very important subject. So anyway, and by all means, share those links, because especially that last one. I think it was on the 24th. to where I try to help people learn how they can, put a little bit of money into items now and more or less get a big return on it after the balloon goes up. I think that was a very important topic, and I think it. I think it when I did the topic, I think it came out well, and so I'm trying to help people. But anyway, let's get into some headlines, and we'll go from there. So, starting with one I put out last night, Cuomo's accuser says he reached under her blouse and groped her in most damning sexual harassment claim yet. So yeah, and that was I think the sixth accuser, and that even went further today, and we will be reading headlines that indicate that momentarily. So, all right, now I'm to news that I put out this morning. Michigan Health Department hit with lawsuit over its refusal to share nursing home data amid comparisons to Cuomo's cover-up. GOP senator ridiculed for taking credit for provision of COVID-19 relief bill he did not vote for and says he's entirely consistent. China's foreign trade reviving global recovery, experts say. Saudis vow to protect oil facilities and global supply after latest attacks. Pakistani court bans TikTok after petition was filed against its immoral and indecent content. Texas governor brands Gab anti-Semitic platform. Company CEO points out Texas GOP is among its users. BBC secrets revealed. Leaked files indicate UK state media engaged in anti-Moscow information warfare operations in Eastern Europe. 6 anti-coup protesters killed after security forces open fire in Myanmar town as military continues violent crackdown, says witnesses. Military will stay in power for a certain time, then hold elections, says Myanmar junta, while accusing ousted Suu Kyi of corruption. Russia looks to replace banned Australian coal exports to China. Ukraine and Latvia's war on Russian language is self-defeating and moronic, given world's most successful countries are multilingual. Bitcoin could become global reserve currency when U.S. dollar implodes, an entrepreneur tells Kaiser report. Siberia set for freak warm weather as Russian experts predict thawing temperatures significantly higher than frosty spring average. And when I read this headline, I got to thinking, and I've been saying this for quite some time, that the Earth is on this extreme wobble, and it indeed is. And I have a sneaky suspicion that extreme wobble is what is causing these differences in temperatures. Because look, we had a very unseasonably mild spell here for a little while. Now we're going back into what would normally be the temperatures of this season. But we've been seeing this, and I mean it's extremes. It's not just an extreme cold that we go through. It's also extreme warm temperatures that we go through, and it's a back and forth, which would almost think about Earth wobbling, would it not? So, very interesting. China's parliament approves proposal to reform Hong Kong's electoral system with Patriots pledge. Throwing in the trowel as construction's demand booms, Russia's short 1.2 million builders after migrants left during COVID pandemic. Denmark, Estonia, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Latvia suspend AstraZeneca COVID vaccine after reports of potentially fatal blood clots. Cancer patients have little protection against COVID after receiving 1 dose of Pfizer jabs, a UK study says. Self-styled champion against Woke Brigade, Piers Morgan leaves ITV with a ha after beating rival BBC Breakfast in ratings. Candace Owens backs Piers Morgan and slams leftist narcissist Meghan Markle and questions racism allegations. I did want to just to say a word to that. Really? So now we're defending the Queen. Really? Really. With all that we should be very suspect of with the royal family, and you want to defend them. Interesting. Beijing calls on Washington to drop Cold War mentality and cooperate with China ahead of high-level meeting next week. Tokyo should launch naval blockade of disputed Russian Kuril Islands, insists former Japanese envoy in Moscow. South Korean Prime Minister declares war on property crime amid growing insider speculation scandal at government state-owned housing corp. Air France rolls out limited COVID-19 health passport system as trial for future travel pass. Sharon Osbourne decried as racist after emotional showdown with co-host Cheryl Underwood over Piers Morgan support. Foreigners refuse to invest in fraudulent state Ukraine because country has reputation for scamming. Reform czar Saakashvili, something like, I don't know. The reason I stumbled so bad is I was thinking about this. Look, I know we're not supposed to have idols. I get that. I wasn't always a obedient servant to the Father. I was an atheist at one time. I was an atheist up until my 30s. And I did have an idol at one time in my life. And that idol was none other than this lady's husband, Ozzy. Ozzy, he played a big role in my younger years. A very big inspiration of mine. And I'm telling you right now, there is not a racist bone in their bodies. There's not. They are very warm, open, and loving people. Regardless of all the crazy stories, which, well, most of them might be true, that you've heard about Ozzy, that's just him. But one thing you've never heard was about how he was hateful, mean, and racist. Never heard about that. Why? Because they're not. They're incredible people that do incredibly good things. You would be shocked to know what all they do. Great people. And it's very disgusting that the term racist can just be so easily thrown at that woman. It bothers me. Iranian crude clogs Chinese ports despite U.S. sanctions. EU urges Britain to repair ties as it plans to sue London over Northern Ireland and accuses Johnson of hogging vaccines. European Medicines Agency gives green light to Johnson & Johnson one-shot COVID-19 jab. Russia set to showcase next-generation T-14 Armata battle tanks in military parade marking defeat of Nazi Germany. Russian strategic bombers fly over Japanese sea during 9-hour-long mission. EU court challenge mounted by Poland and Hungary over budget law amid bloc's probe into alleged media crackdowns. COVID has left Americans stressed, drinking more, sleeping less, and struggling with weight issues, psychologists say. 6 million jobs across EU wiped out by first wave of COVID-19 pandemic, says a study. Italy bans AstraZeneca batch and Norway suspends jabs rollout over concerns it caused fatal blood clots. American astronauts to again use Russian Soyuz rocket to reach ISS as NASA can't rely on unstable U.S. tech, says Moscow space chief. Feminist author condemned as anti-woman after claiming stay-at-home mothers are bad examples for children. UK police urged to think very carefully before participating in BLM protests, says a report. Men-only curfew should be imposed after murder of London woman, Green Party Baroness suggests, prompting mockery online. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of men getting drove into the ground. I'm tired of it. Judge reinstates third-degree murder charge against Derek Chauvin over George Floyd death. With the election just 6 months away, opinion poll reveals support for Russia's ruling party has dropped to the lowest figure since 2013. France says it's easing COVID travel restrictions for 7 non-EU states. EU drug regulator investigating 30 reports of blood clotting linked to AstraZeneca jab as states halt rollout of COVID vaccine. The dysfunction goes up to Cuomo. Whistleblower says New York governor's order created COVID death traps at disabled group homes, says reports. That guy. And they need to lock him up. Let's see. Toronto City Council meeting descends into chaos as staffer vulgarly voices frustration on a hot mic. Slovak health minister forced to resign under pressure from coalition partners criticizing Sputnik 5 purchase. Third German lawmaker in a week resigns from Merkel's coalition over COVID face mask procurement controversy. Disgraced establishment journalist, big tech attacked independent platform Substack in ever-expanding definition of harassment. Biden signs historic $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan and promises answers to press later. I watched that, and guess what? Not a single answer. Not as in taking questions answer. When he was done speaking, he turned around and walked away like he has every single time. I talked about that on tonight's show before I got to the subject that was planned. I talked about that. I urge you to click on the link in the description and go watch the full episode of this show if you haven't already. Pelosi says Biden's humanitarian approach to migration is based on love of children. That headline, when I read it today, it's like, you don't say. France's 4,000 COVID-19 patients in intensive care, highest since November amid concerning Paris situation, says health minister. Snoopers on steroids, UK secretly constructing super tech lab out of questionably collected data, says the media. Pentagon slams Fox News' Tucker Carlson for segment on feminine U.S. military. Half of French care home workers reluctant to take COVID-19 vaccines due to lack of confidence in the government, says reports. LA police was unprepared for George Floyd protest violence, not seen in years, believed it would be peaceful, a report says. Piers Morgan says he won't be going back to Good Morning Britain after petitions for his return rack up 200,000 plus signatures. New York House Speaker launches impeachment probe into Cuomo over sexual harassment allegations and COVID nursing home cover-up. Biden says all American adults will be eligible for vaccination by May 1, says rollout months ahead of schedule. And I'm concerned that it's going to wind up mandatory. So, anyway, I am going to get out of here. This is my Friday, so I've got to do a threat assessment episode tomorrow for Patreon. If I don't, they're going to string me up. So I hope everybody has a good weekend. And God willing, we'll see you back on Sunday night. As always, God bless you. We love you. Be one with your spirit. Shabbat and Shalom.